Hi, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the interplay of insights and data and how we can use that to find better insights, better data, make better decisions, and ultimately have a better marketing strategy. And so I think one example of someone who did that well was a civilization I've always admired, the Greek civilization. In particular, they had a lot of scientific advances with very few complicated instruments or lots of big data. Instead, what they really started with was their insights about the situation. And so, one example would be how they estimated the size of the Earth. So, they knew a lot about how the Earth revolves around its axis, how the Earth revolves around the sun, and they knew that that would be related to the shadows that the sun would cast. And so, using this knowledge and how those shadows would change with the curvature of the Earth, they realized they could step off the distance between two cities, look at how the shadow sizes differed between those two cities, and estimate the size of the Earth quite well. And I think what's amazing about this is notice the data wasn't there just waiting for an insight. Rather, they had the insight, and then they went and got the data they needed to find the learning that they wanted. And so if we look at how that compares with the typical approach we see a lot of companies take with research, that often starts with the executives allocating a budget, some money to do the research. Then the marketer often goes around to different people in the organization to be inclusive and ask them, what questions would you like to ask? And maybe someone says, I want to know about customers, their age, their income, the number of children they have, their education level, their gender. Another person may say, I want to know more about how customers use the product, how frequently they use it, what occasions they use it, what other brands they might have used. And another person may say, I'd like to know more about what they want out of the product or what they don't like. So have them list things they like, things they don't like, right? And over time, what happens to this approach is you start to get a very long survey, too long to really give. So then the phase is to cut down the survey, cut down its length. Then you send out this survey and you kind of hope for something good on the back end. And I liken this approach to what a gold prospector does in some ways. Right, I've got a river. The gold prospector takes a pan, puts it in the river, shakes the pan, and hopes to find some gold nuggets. Unfortunately, far too often, we don't find any gold nuggets. And more data, more pans, more shaking often doesn't give us much more insights as well. I like to contrast that with another approach, that of finding a sunken treasure. And this approach, think how we would start. We start first with some insights, right? We wouldn't start just going anywhere in the ocean floor hoping to find it. Rather, we might look at historical accounts of the ship that's sunk. We might look at ship logs. We might look at weather patterns. We might ask local divers if they've seen something, right? We would get some of these different facts and triangulate and say, well, here's some locations I think that may be located. Then you would go get the data and test those spots to see if indeed you found it. In many ways, this approach is like the scientific method from elementary school. We have a hypothesis, and then we're going to get some data to confirm it. And notice how this approach is fundamentally different than our typical survey approach the firm was using, where they're just kind of adding questions of interest. Instead, now we have particular insights or hypotheses that we want this research to test. And as a result, the questions we want on the survey, the analysis we'll perform, they fall out naturally. We know what needs to be done, and we get exactly what we want. I've certainly found this approach is much more informative. I learn much more. It's much more useful. It's faster, and it's less expensive. And I think you'll likely find the same. And so just remember this principle: insights before data.